Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Whose Views. Yes, this one is, of course, part of our Carry On series. As you can see, I'm joined by Paul, shut your cakey, and George. I'm sure you'll get staffed.
Hello.
Hello. Now, if you haven't seen this brilliant piece of British comedy, you won't know what those mean at all. But nice to see you guys. Nice to see you. Nice. How are you both?
Not too bad. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm good. I'm excited by this one, Who Views, as well, guy, because this, of course, is us going back to the 5th installment in the hugely successful and hugely profitable and hugely popular Carry On series, a British classic series of comedy films. The 5th one from 1961. It was first premiered on the 23rd of March 1961 and then came out on the 7th of April 1961, according to my research. And this reminded me of those days when I was little, when a film would come out and get the premiere, and then you did have to wait for a little while to go and see the film for most common loss.
Yeah.
Well, to prove how popular the Carry-Ons had become so quickly, there was almost a year between Carry On Constable, the film before this one, and Carry On Regardless. And apparently Peter Rogers' office at Pinewood Studios was absolutely flooded with letters saying, why isn't there another Carry On? When's the next Carry On? Please say there's going to be another Carry On.
Oh, I love it. I love that. That's great.
Despite that year's break, this is the 5th Carry On film in less than 4 years.
That shows
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. And it shows you back there there was a market for this, because this is, everybody, we are here to talk about Carry On Regardless. Oh, with the names there. Names. Sidney James, Kenneth Connor, Charles Hawtrey, John Sims, Kenneth Williams, Bill Owen, Liz Fraser, and Terence Longdon as the regular team in this one, if you like here. I love the poster as well.
Though in this one, originally Hattie Jakes was to have played one of the lead roles. Yes. But ill health meant she had to drop out at the last moment. Her part was extensively rewritten and became Delia King, who was played by Liz Fraser, making her Carry On debut.
Well, there you go. And
also Terence Longdon wasn't due to be in it. Originally, Leslie Phillips had agreed to do it, but he was becoming very, very concerned that he was becoming so associated with the Carry-Ons that he couldn't get work elsewhere. So he bowed out of it.
It's strange, isn't it? Because he wasn't wrong, actually, because 30 years later, he's still associated with these things.
Well, I mean, he said in interviews decades down the line, he said, back then I did 3 Carry-Ons. I may as well have done 103.
Yeah. Oh, it's hey, listen, thanks to everybody that's in the chat here as well. We are here to talk about Carry On Regardless. Have you in the chat watched it, ready for this particular show? I'd say, back to 1961. Directed by Gerald Thomas, written by Norman Hoodis, and produced by Peter Rogers. There's the team for this one here.
Sorry, I've definitely got my Carry On Anorak on tonight, but a little known fact about this film is part of it was actually directed by Ralph Thomas, Jerry's brother.
Was it really?
And Ralph Thomas directed all the Doctor films.
Oh.
Which was the sister series, wasn't it?
Yes. Because Jerry Thomas came down with the flu bug, and obviously with the Carry On, the schedule was everything, and they couldn't run over time and over budget. So
obviously,
stepped in and did 2 or 3 days directing. So it was actually in part directed by Ralph Thomas as well.
Well, that's interesting. Hello, everybody. There's Julianne saying to us here, good evening. Oh, hello, Julianne. How are you, darling? And Sam was there as well. Hey, Sam. Steve Hindley's with us saying, so do you have a Popsy cupboard? A Popsy cupboard. Oh, we are going to be talking about that. We'll get cancelled. That's fun.
It was 1961,
Well, yeah. You've got to get them on the DVDs and the Blu-rays and the other edited versions, because things like this are going to get edited out.
Yeah, that must be cut out already.
Hi, John.
Well, one very noticeable thing about this Carry On is it's considerably more saucy than its predecessors.
Yes, I wanted to talk about that.
Lines like Popsy Cupboard, you get Liz Fraser parading around in various frillies. You get lines of nurses down to their underwear. All that sort of thing.
I want to talk about that because it's as though it's all starting to come in now towards the evolving towards the carry-ons we know and love of the 70s, especially Legion of James. It's only Wednesday. What a long week. Thankfully, there's a bit of carry-on going on tonight. I'm glad you're with us, James. How are you? Good to see you. Let's see who else is with us. Paul Stenterford is with us. Nice to see you. And Michael Q is with us as well. Hello, Michael. And Rose is saying to us, hi, Rose Kirby. How are you? My eyesight is limited now, so I'm listening. Oh, darling, I hope you're well. Hope you're okay. And I'm glad you can still find us and listening to us. And I shall remember that, Rose, and try and describe as much of the nonsense we talk about on all our various shows as possible. Yeah, but it's lovely to have you, darling, and hope you are well. Good to see you. What else? Who else we got here as well? We've got Steve Braddock is with us as well. Nice to see you, Steve. And Matt the Silent Wee Music King is saying, look, carry on whose views. Compo Simonite Esquire, Steve. Yeah, Bill Owen is in this one, which I always forget until I actually put it on. And Yokai63 is saying to us, guys, this is an underrated carry-on. Love it. Now that ties in with what I was just actually saying there as well, really, wasn't it? Because I forget about Regardless an awful lot, and I don't know why, because it seems to be one of the most repeated version carry-on films on Film 4 and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
This Fraser was a stunner. And you know, it's one that I remember. If somebody will mention something about it, you know, because the whole thing with the house at the end and all that, it's one of the.
It's the bit with the chimpanzee that always sticks in my mind with Kenneth Williams taking it for a walk and then going to the zoo, and all the tea monkeys are there. It's fantastic at the zoo. Right?
It was Stephen's agreeing with that. I watched this yesterday, and it's a very underrated carry-on. It's a series of comedy sketches, but there are some very funny classic scenes throughout. That's really that's not really a bad way to describe this, is it?
Well, Steve, I mean, it's the only carry-on that was a collection of sketches, almost like a review show, rather than having a story arc script, if you like. I mean, the peg that it hangs on is the Helping Hands agency. It is, and I don't like helping yourself, Hands.
Again, it's one of those things today. They wouldn't dream of calling an agency in any film today Helping Hands, would they? And Helping Yourself, Hands.
It is basically a feature film version of a sketch show.
Yeah, it is. Paul Rose is with us, guys, saying, hi, JT, Paul and George. I'm ready for messing about, slide whistle in hand. Well, we'll move on. Because this is a carry-on. It is a carry-on one. And Mark Greaves is saying, hi, panel. The sheer length of Bill Owen's acting career was amazing. Dalek Eye is saying, oh, good evening, everyone. I watched it today. Oh, fantastic. That's brilliant. And it was funny, says Stephen Braddock. Liz Fraser and Bill Owen were in this film together before she was composed Thursday Girl in Last of the Summer Wine. That's how the industry worked back then. There wasn't people work together all the time. Absolutely brilliant. Paul Stenterford is also mentioning that the legend, if you don't mind me saying that, about Stanley Ullman. I remember him from when I was a kid, and he was in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and all sorts of things, wasn't he? Stanley Ullman as the landlord talking complete gobbledygook is just brilliant. What a legend.
Apparently when he was on set, Kenneth Williams was chatting to Jerry Thomas, and Kenny Williams said, it's amazing how he's so word perfect with his gobbledygook on every single time. It's so on point. His lines are just faultless. And apparently Jerry Thomas turned around to Kenneth Williams and said, well, he's the only one of the cast who is.
Ooh, scathing.
I thought you were going to say he's great with the gobbledygook, but not good with the English part of it.
Hello, Adrian. It's good to see you. Adrian is telling us that he loves the carry-on films. That's wonderful. And Sam saying to us, more racy. Liz Fraser in her frillies. It makes you wonder if it would have been the same if Hattie had kept the role. Probably not.
I suspect that scene was written for Liz Fraser and it wasn't originally scheduled for Hattie Jakes to do.
I wouldn't have thought so at all.
Hattie's health recovered, and towards the end of the shooting schedule, she did one day's work as the ward sister in the maternity ward.
With the wonderful Joan Hickson as the matron.
With Joan Hickson as matron in reverse roles, and for one day's work.
I love that. There are a lot of people in this film. When you watch it and you go, I forgot that. I mean, Joan Hickson. Oh, wow, wonderful. But it is great. The scene we're talking about, by the way, is this. Again, we've got some of these wonderful cards. George has given us some of these wonderful cards. These were cards, as you'll know if you've seen us before talking about the carry-ons, that I used to love as a kid. Because back in the old days, young ones, when we used to have to queue outside the cinema, you had to walk across or walk past the cinema and into the cinema. So they would put out all these pictures of the film you were going to see. And I used to love getting so excited. You got nearer and nearer the door. And this is one of them. These are great.
Well, back in 1961, then, there would have been queues outside cinemas up and down the countries that shuffle past that photograph of Liz Fraser.
I wonder if she got to sign any in her time.
Well, give you a lovely tease of what was coming in the film, which is nice, not just that picture particularly. But
They don't do it anymore, do they? Because they're all different now, and they're all multiplexes and all this nonsense. Because we went down the American route, really. But even some of the independent ones, like my local I go to, which is a beautiful family-run one, they don't get them, so there's no point in them actually doing them. They just have to put up the big posters,
They're very, very, very rarely produced nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of cinemas now have digital display boards and don't use printed posters and photographs. They just send digital files, they download them and use those.
So if you're collecting them, everybody, tough. Quite frankly.
Basically.
They're not bothering. So this is a great film, isn't it? This one here. I had forgotten. This is not one of the carry-ons I go back to all the time, I have to say. If it comes on the television, I'm quite happy. And I find it, I'm quite happy to watch it. But actually sitting down the other night and watching this in full, deliberately for this show, I've forgotten how much I enjoy this. It is quite funny. But let's get to that subject now. It is different to its four predecessors. There is a shift in tone to the humor. It is becoming a little bit more, back then, a little bit more on the line. It's going where the 50s films didn't. And you can I actually do think, guys, that this might be the start of the old stuff coming in. You can sort of, and you were mentioning a couple of the points there, and I do think, that's really good. I quite like it.
But it's not to the extent it gets to in the 70s, fortunately, because that's when it gets a bit too much, doesn't it? Really.
Well, how much is too much? But I think certainly.
Well, you know what I mean. It ruins the fun of it if it's too blue. You know what I mean? It's the innuendo is better than. Probably, isn't it?
I mean, certainly back in 1961, for a U certificate film, it definitely pushed the envelope. But there were boundaries because an entire sequence was filmed with Charles Hawtrey, and the whole sequence was cut because the British Board of Film Censors wouldn't pass it because it was considered too risque.
What scene was that then?
There was a scene where Charles Hawtrey was sent to a woman's house because she was having very vivid dreams.
Oh.
And the woman was played by an actress called Eleanor Summerfield. And Charles Hawtrey's job was to transcribe everything that she said in her dreams.
Right.
And of course, there was a lot of innuendo and double entendre in there.
Of course.
And the British Board of Film Censors objected to so many lines in it. Peter Rogers took the decision to cut the entire sequence.
Good grief, really?
Because if he trimmed out what the British Board of Film Censors objected to, he said the jokes were lost. It just didn't make sense. So the whole sequence ended up on the cutting room floor.
Just like it does now when they prune the carry-on films. Now a lot of the gag is lost, and it just looks daft.
Now, if you want to know what the original sequence was. The very first Carry On book published, called The Carry On Book, which was published in 1976. There is a transcript of the entire sequence in that book. And it just so happens I have a copy here.
Hurrah! I remember that book. So I never bought it, but I remember it on shelves.
Yeah, in there.
You're never going to forget that cover, right? Let's face it.
In there is the script for the complete cut sequence.
Oh, wow. How fantastic. Oh, I love that. That's great.
Yes.
I'm going to have to try and dig out a copy from somewhere.
It's interesting you say about things being cut. It's funny. It feels, because it is a sketch-based kind of film, it feels like the cast are spread very, very thinly, and they've got very little to do a bit, if that makes sense. No one's got a real starring part in it.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Charles Hawtrey took exception to this film. He had the hump with it because he felt that he had a diminished role. His sequences weren't funny, particularly as the one we were just talking about got cut, which he thought was his starring, his 5 minutes of fame in the film.
Certainly for him, especially, there are changes coming, aren't there? Really, because he becomes. you can sort of start to see it here, but he does get in the films that come after it, they change it slightly for him, don't they? And he becomes a little bit more, I don't know what to call him really, not camp exactly, but he becomes more stereotypical of the performance he has.
Yeah, he becomes very much as Charles Hawtrey in it.
Charles Hawtrey, that's a good way to do it. I like what Stephen Braddock was here, guys. Actually, George, hang on. It's a product of his time. At the start of the film, the men and women have separate employment offices. I'd forgotten about things like that as well. True, very true. Yeah, thanks, Stephen.
But Charles Hawtrey. This was basically the start of rifts. The wrong word. The difference of opinion between Charles Hawtrey and Peter Rogers. And it was the basis of what he felt was him getting a raw deal in Carry On Regardless that prompted him, when they were casting for the next one, Carry On Cruising, to go back and say, I want top billing, I want a better salary, I want a star on my dressing room door. And Peter Rogers said, you're sitting this one out, Charlie. Exactly.
You can't people. Ward 10 emergency, says Steve Hinley. Yes, lovely. And Paul Stanford is saying Nicholas Parsons never appeared in another Carry On after Gerald Thomas contacted his agent to complain he was too fussy for asking for another take. Yeah, we were just talking about that stuff beforehand. You didn't have time on these films, did you? You just did it, and that was it. You couldn't actually be too committed to the craft. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, around that time, Nicholas Parsons was appearing in a lot of British comedy movies. So it's entirely plausible that, he was under consideration to be a Carry On regular of some description.
Wow.
But yes,
it's interesting seeing a lot of film faces in this. Jerry Desmond, who was a regular with No Wisdom, is in this film. It's lovely to see him as is it Paul Martin, the actor, I think, who goes, he's looking for a new wife.
Terence Alexander.
Another thing about Carry On Regardless, which sets it aside from all the other Carry-Ons, is the size of the cast. It by far has the biggest cast any Carry On ever had. And as you said, with Terence Alexander and Jerry Desmond, Molly Weir's another one.
Molly Weir.
A lot of faces you don't associate with Carry On pop up in it. Kynaston Reeves, who was a very big British character actor at the time. He's in there. There's all sorts of names that pop up.
And they couldn't have been paid. They must have all just done it for the crack or something like that. Because it is the fifth, don't forget, the fifth Carry On film. So people must have started taking notice of this now. This was the fifth in what was, a big thing. I reckon a lot of them just did it to say, yes, I'll do that for the face value, if you like. Listen, Mark's with us, just say, hi, Mark. Evening all, I've just watched this on Blu-ray. It looks fabulous and one of my favorites. Ooh, on Blu-ray, please. You see, Mark's posh.
Yes, I think some of the actors who appeared, for a couple of minutes, like Nicholas Parsons, probably thought, by this time it was obvious the Carry-Ons had legs and they were going to run for quite a while. I'll get my feet under the table with this one, and will cast me more once. It'll be regular work.
Yeah. It's
I thought the actor, and I've forgotten his name, the guy who plays the waiter at the wine tasting, he's brilliant. He's very funny. His interaction with Joan Sims is very funny. He does that wonderful gag with the tray and the glasses on. That's really well.
Wonderful stuff. And it's good British humour as well, isn't it? All this stuff, because it might have been new at the time. I mean, we were quite used to all these sort of things. Maybe they got it from all these performances in these original films by that. I don't know. Stephen Braddock is saying to us, Sid wouldn't have got away with measuring the girls. He'd and helping hands. Joan Sims says, suppose she won on points.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good point. However, though, isn't it really to make? Because there's an awful lot of stuff in this. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think the thing to remember to this day is there was never any malice in it.
Of course not. It's all good humour.
Yes, and that's a lovely publicity shot of Sid with Liz Fraser, used to promote the film.
It really is, isn't it?
And I think that really illustrates the sort of the enduring friendships that came out of the Carry-Ons with the cast and the crew.
Sid knew Liz quite well from Hancock, didn't he?
Yes.
A lot of Hancock.
Yeah, they were good friends for a long, long time.
Yeah, they really were. And it's just, I mean, as you say, though, nothing's really out of place. It might have been put, but this was the beginning of the 60s. They had no idea what was around the corner from 63, 64 onwards, did they really? Where it all got a little bit too much slap and tickle. But this is quite subtle. But do you know what, as well? This is the thing about the black and white ones for me, is that it's all about the comedy. It's all about giving a good, entertaining film that people will laugh at. And this one is different because you guys have both mentioned this is sort of like sketches. And, you know, as you said in the chat, this is sort of sketches. And it works, though, because it's all about, as we in Doctor Who land would call an umbrella theme, isn't it? The Helping Hands Agency. And therefore, you're sending out your helping hands to all these different situations.
And they all got a couple of sketches each, so that's how it works. You know?
Yeah. And it's just lovely. And it really works that way. And then they come together at the end for that. You know, that funny scene where they're all together at the end. I just love it all. I think it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I've got this lovely picture here of some of them here. Look at this. Having a little sing song there, I think. Absolutely wonderful. I love it.
Can I have we've not seen her yet, but can I have a shout out for Esme Cannon?
Oh yes, the wonderful Esme Cannon.
Yeah, there she is, as the kind of secretary, the main head of who runs Helping Hands effectively, really.
Yeah,
she really does. But I have a soft spot for this lady. I mean, a lot of people will not know who this is, of course, but she was around on British television an awful lot when I was a little boy, and for some reason I gravitated to her because she was always that sort of. I mean, we see it more in Cruising. That sort of woman I associated to be that literally sort of old British woman. She's in Cabby as well, with a sterling performance in that. And this one again, she is really good. She's playing it straight. This is a great role for her.
My wife loves Esme Cannon in this. We watched this together and she loved it. And it always makes her laugh, makes her smile all the time. She's so good.
I don't know why, but I'm always mildly surprised at the fact that Esme Cannon was Australian.
Yeah.
And she came over to the UK. Yeah, she came over to the UK in the 1940s, just after the war, and established herself as a leading comedy actress. But she was, to me, she was like a female version of Peter Butterworth. She just had funny bones.
Yeah,
that's a good point, actually, isn't it? You know, that is a good point. I like it. Says Stephen. I like that. She just suits this film for me, and it's right that she's there. You know, as this sort of organizer, the coordinator of Helping Hands, and I love the way she plays it. The bits where she can't understand Mr. Gobbledygook.
Yeah. Her faces, her expressions are superb.
Superb expressions. You know, really look at them. She's really putting the energy into her muscles there in the face. It's just absolutely good. And the bit where she gets one of my favorite scenes, and there's a few favorite scenes, but one of my favorite scenes, of course, is when she's taking that call for the bridge. She can't understand it. She can't. You get this feeling that the character isn't quite sure of the telephone still. You know, it's like that. and then he, of course, you know, Kenneth Connors' character goes off on one with his big fantasy island type stuff. But the way she's reacting, and that's. It's just, she is magical, isn't she? She's absolutely gorgeous.
It was a great shame that the acting game lost its appeal for Esme, and she retired from it in 1963. The last thing she ever did actually was Carry On Cabby. And Peter Rogers was desperate to have her as a regular in the Carry-Ons, and he would get in touch with Esme on a regular basis and say, can I send you the script for the new Carry On? There's a great part in it for you. And she would say, Peter, that's lovely of you, but I'm retired. I spend my days in my cottage making homemade jam and Sunday roast now. So no, I won't do it.
That's a shame.
I'm quite sad now. Thanks for that, George. Because she would have fitted into every single one that followed, quite frankly. You know. Do you
know how long she was in the business for, George?
Certainly, I mean, she was well established in Australia apparently, but in the UK, apparently, from the moment she arrived in our shores to when she retired, I don't think she was ever out of work.
I can imagine not.
Yeah.
Marcus saying to us, it's very much starting the transition phase from old style Carry On to the change in tone which was to come. I do think that looking at this, Mark, you know, I'm looking at this particular film and I've never noticed it before, but because we're really reviewing all this now for Who's Views, I was just like, you look at those other things, don't you? And I just thought, hang on a minute, this is the sort of start of it, and I love it all. It's just brilliant. Adrian, nice to see you, Adrian. Adrian is saying, when I was a kid in the 70s, the ITV used to show a Carry On film every Christmas. They still do. However, it's only on for about 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes,
On
including
ITV4 or something like that, or 3. Yeah.
Some of the adverts run longer than the Carry
yeah.
On films on ITV now.
Yeah.
They're ridiculous, wouldn't it? Oh, I hate what they do.
There was one time when I was, excuse my name dropping, chatting to Angela Douglas, and she said, "Oh, I saw Carry On Cowboy on TV the other night, and it was so edited I wasn't in it."
I love that. Well done to her. That is fantastic. Listen, thank you for joining us. It's great to see you all in the chat. We are looking at Carry On Regardless as part of this. Nice to see you all. Thanks to Kirsty and Garbage who are joining us as well. They're both in there, making sure everybody's happy in the chat too. My favourite scene is in the library, says Steve Hindley, where Kenneth Connor loses it and starts laughing his head off.
I love that, but especially when the guy's wig goes down like that and he can't hold it in. It's brilliant.
I find
the
it
bit
a
when he
really
tries to get the
bizarre
man's
scene.
attention about his flies being undone and stuff like that. It's brilliant. Really
Yeah,
funny.
I find it a really bizarre scene though, because I just think, that would actually happen in that situation. Why is
And
it
his
funny?
squeaky shoes as well are superb. Love that, yeah.
Oh, the squeaky shoes. Hey, listen to this, guys. David Harding is with us. Hiya, David. Based on your review of Carry On Screaming, I picked up the first 3 Carry On Blu-ray sets, 4 movies per set. I just got the first one in the mail last week. The 4th set comes out next month. Oh, well, that's nice to know, David. I'm glad that we're helping you to spend your hard-earned dosh.
Yes, they're available from Imprint Films in Australia at the moment. Though I've been reliably informed that a UK release is on its way.
Yay, which is always good. And what's this from Rose Kirby? Hey, I've just had a thought. Carry On Regardless is in box 3, film 3. This show is on the 13th and it's 63 years ago. Ooh.
Oh,
It's a little
spooky.
bit spooky there, darling, isn't it? Really is. Oh, and Stephen Braddock's back with this thing. The scene with Fenella Fielding is a very preemptive of a Carry On Screaming scene, panting. No, that's the way I always breathe. I must have a man by 8 o'clock. That again.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve, I love that scene with Fenella Fielding. And also Kenneth. Here's Kenneth coming along doing what he's going to do for the rest of his Carry On career, really. We've sort of seen signs of this from Sergeant onwards.
Yeah.
But here he is now, where the attractive woman comes along and he just goes completely slapstick, And I love this bit because there she is with him sitting on the sofa and doing all these sort of things. And he's trying not to look at this very impressive cleavage, quite frankly. And he's trying to be a gentleman. And it's starting to fail miserably. And I'm even thinking at some points here, when I'm looking at this, Kenneth's clapping a good look here as well.
That was another scene that ran foul of the British Board of Film Censors.
Was it really? Why am I not surprised?
Kenneth Connor has a line where he says, "Please, Mrs. Panting, you're making it very difficult for me."
I can imagine what was the replacement line. Yeah.
Yes, that was the replacement line. The original line shot was, "Please, Mrs. Panting, you're making it very hard for me." And British Board of Film Censors said, "You're not having that."
Oh, you spoil sports, BBFC. It's just a wonderful scene, though. And Fenella oozing sexuality, charm, charisma. She's really, really. I mean, this is her first Carry On, isn't it?
It is, yeah, first of 2.
And it's the cameos. Yeah, she does the screaming, which we reviewed last month. But I just love the way she keeps that face. She keeps that, that whole, and it's him. And that would be very difficult, I'm sure, to do when he's prattling around, going, all the Kenneth Connor type things. This is what he builds on as he goes through in the Carry-Ons, isn't it? And I really
he works very hard in these films, I have to say. No pun intended. Yeah.
But it is a wonderful scene, and it's lovely to see. I'll show that picture again. Look at that. And it's just typical this particular. It's all about the woman making the husband jealous, and poor old Kenneth Connor's character getting it. Yeah.
And Ed Devereaux's the husband from Skippy, Sons Up. Yeah.
Ed Devereaux. Another link there to Australia.
Yeah.
Just as a quick sidebar, if you haven't read it, Fenella Fielding's memoirs, "Do You Mind If I Smoke?" are well worth a read. She doesn't pull any punches about anybody in it.
I must actually go and get that then.
So is it like Carry On Babylon? Is that a little bit?
We have to say good morning to Boomer Doug, our mate Boomer Doug. Good morning to you, mate. He said, "Hi all, I've had to get early for this one." Well, thank you so much. Why is it 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning for you over there? But it's lovely to see you, Boomer Doug. Nice, and I hope you're going to have a lovely day. After this, go back to bed. Don't have any coffee. But lovely to see you, mate. Hope you are really well. Mark Greaves is asking us all here, did it become a badge of honor to be asked to do a carry-on, like guest starring in The Muppets or The Simpsons? I don't know anything about that.
Apparently not at the time, but further down the line when the carry-ons, were elevated to cult status, then yes, a lot of carry-on people who are no longer with us and those that still are all say, yes, what a joy to turn around and say, yeah, I was involved in all that laughter. I was part of it.
Well, it's similar to Doctor Who in a sense, isn't it? Because back when they were doing it, back in the 60s and 70s, and even in the 80s, they didn't realize that they were going to be carrying on talking about it till the day they pass,
The one thing I will say is every single person I have ever met who was there for a carry-on in any sort of capacity, contrary to popular belief, without any sort of prompting or any sort of coercion, have all said they were enormous fun to do. I have never laughed so much and got paid in my life. So they were an absolute joy to do. And all this thing that everybody hated everybody, they were done in a dreadful atmosphere and all that sort of stuff, is absolute cobblers.
I like to hear that, because that's what we've heard in the last 30 years. We heard about the backstage fallouts, people not liking each other. Certainly we've had the stage. I went to see that stage show at the National.
Camping Emmanuel and Dick.
That one, I went to see that, and I came out quite sad. Thinking, oh, I don't know. And then we had the certain documentaries, but I shouldn't have watched those either, because it rearranged my idea.
And these Channel 5 scandal documentaries, I think they're allegedly under-researched. I think that's the problem.
But it was that stage show that I went to, and although the stage show was very, very good, and of course the cast were brilliant, I came out thinking, oh, you've just slapped something for me, But still, it's great doing these reviews with everybody, because reliving them now and rediscovering them at the age that I'm now of 29. Georgie Boy is saying to us, I really like the early carry-ons, with Carry On Cabby being for me the perfect afternoon film. Now that's interesting you say that, Georgie Boy, because this one I watched in the afternoon and it was perfect. It absolutely was perfect. Just to sit down, a cup of tea, suggestive biscuit, watch this, wonderful.
Though it became a carry-on posthumously, I suppose. It went into production as a comedy for Sid James called Call Me a Cab, and it was only in post-production it was changed to Carry On Cabby and became part of the Carry On series.
We will get round to Cabby though as well, because it's one of my favorite films, so we will get around
Cabby,
to that. Yeah, another black and white gem as well. What's this from? I wonder if the Goodies pinched this idea of doing anything anytime. It's a very similar premise. I've only just realized that, Stephen Braddock. Maybe they did.
Possibly, yeah.
That's in my head now. Can't get rid of that now. Boomer Doug's back with us saying, I confess I do love the innocence of the early black and white carry-ons. And Rose saying to us, I watched this film at 5:30 this morning and then again just after 2 p.m. One thing I can say for this film franchise is it's funny. And when people review it, it brings back wonderful memories. Yeah.
Though Norman Hudis, the scriptwriter for this one, said of his 6 carry-ons, he did the first 6. This was his least favourite, and he thought the least successful of the 6. He thought it was too bitty and it didn't have the structure that the other 5 that he wrote had.
Well, you're going to have your hits and misses when you're going. But this one, of course, I don't think this is a miss at all. This is definitely a hit. Esme was the star for me in this movie. Simply superb, says Dalek Eye. It's a shame that I didn't know that. It's such a shame that she didn't carry on, because I would have liked to have seen her in all of them. I really would, because she's just a lovely character.
Or just carry on her acting career in general would have been nice.
Yeah. And now, of course, she's all but forgotten, which I think is terrible. And she was a star, everybody, in her time. She was. Yes. Legion of James, hi mate, how are you? Hope you're still enjoying your mug, your Who's Views mug. Carry-on films are a class all to themselves. No matter how many times you've seen them, you can never fail to laugh just as hard as you did the first time. I tend to start laughing in anticipation. I do that when I'm walking down the street, James. I can just be walking down the street, walking into Tesco's or Morrison's or wherever, and I'll burst out laughing. It's just, I'm not saying anything about the people around me, but it's quite true. But it is, isn't it? It's wonderful that. I remember seeing this for the first time, guys. There were several things about this that I remember. Oh, look, Carry On Behind gets chopped to bits on ITV3. I wonder why. I remember watching this as a little boy. I'm actually really enjoying this. And I remember laughing out loud. I know that's a term that's used a lot today, but as a little boy, belly laughing at this and not quite understanding some of it, but knowing it was funny, and just loving it all.
I mean, there's a lot of very visual slapstick humor in it.
Yes.
As well as the more risque entendre jokes.
Yes.
So, you know, the whole family could go and see it and they would all find a level of it to laugh at.
Yeah.
I absolutely, and I'd agree with that completely. And one of I'm going to say this now because I've been looking forward to talking about this lady all day. And Paul Stanford says it here for me. One of the main highlights of this film for me is Joan Sims doing her best drunk acting, something she could do very, very well, which is sad in a sense because it foreshadows her personal life. However, it was this scene that one of these scenes I loved Joan Sims' character in this film, and that scene where she's playing drunk. Man, that's one of the ones I remember as a little boy. It was so funny.
A great example of the bon ami and the rapport between the Carry On cast and Peter Rogers and Jerry Thomas was the wine tasting scene was shot at 8:30 in the morning at Pinewood on a cold winter's morning. And as a joke, one of the glasses that they gave to Joan Sims, they replaced the water with neat gin. And at 8:30 in the morning, she downed a full glass of neat gin. And that reaction is absolutely genuine that you see in the film and in that photograph.
There's a bit of method acting for you. Yeah.
Yes. What a pro. This is the scene we're talking about here.
She's just swallowed a full glass of neat gin.
Good.
The actor to the left of her, he's brilliant in this.
I will never be able to watch that scene again without knowing that as well. But this is it. This is the scene we've got here. In this particular scene, for those of you who haven't seen the film yet, she's the helping hand that's gone to she's basically being a hostess, isn't she? At this very suave wine tasting thing. It's supposed to be all fna. You know, it's all the upper crusts back then.
Yes.
You know, it really is. All the lords, basically. And it's very men. She's the only woman there. You know, which is another gag, basically. So she's like, "Oh, I'm taking all the tickets," and thank you. And she's doing it. And Joan is brilliant at all that. Oh, thank you, God. Thank you. And then then they say, "Would you like to come in?" And I love the bit. Even as a little boy, I remember this. This inspired me as a little boy. She's got all the tickets in her hand. She's been all lovely posture. Would you like to come in? Oh yes.
Oh, what a pretty colour, rather like Coca-Cola.
And the whole gag is, of course, she gets completely and utterly tossed. It's just brilliant. And it's just brilliant. And some of these FNAF fellas of the time, of course, are starting to get more and more attracted to her, isn't it? Which is where that line comes from. I love all that. It was just... I loved her from that moment I saw her, Joan Sims. What a clever and beautiful character actress.
It's a lovely moment, though, at the end when she shoves everyone, they all fall over at the end. That's brilliant. Yeah.
But that other bit there, the bit I saw there, showed there, that bit there where they're at the Ideal Home Exhibition and she's in the bath and then Kenneth falls in with her. Now, I think part of that is just them having a laugh.
Yeah, well...
It's so funny.
Kenneth Williams sustained an injury filming that scene.
Oh.
On take one, he veered to the side and he crunched his bits against the side of the bath.
Ow.
No, he would have lived out on that for 30 years. Come on.
Probably, yeah.
Yes, he was taken off set and there was a reset and Jerry Thomas was keen to get the shot in the can, so he went looking for Kenneth Williams to get him back on set. And he found him at the side of the set, stretched out on the bench, with his trousers down, with the studio nurse massaging copious amounts of Savlon into his parts. And apparently, Kenneth Williams was clearly enjoying it. And Jerry Thomas just looked him up. Jerry Thomas just looked him up and down and said, "Do that on your own time, Kenny. We need you for the shot."
And I bet he was up and off as well, wasn't he?
He was, yes.
Oh, can you imagine it? Weird. No, it's terrible. Okay. I bet he was giving her instructions as well.
Little to the left.
I'm surprised Kenneth Connor wasn't injured in that bed, demonstrating the sheets and stuff and all that, you know.
That must have been. I bet it was just plywood. All plywood, and you had to lie on something uncomfortable. Oh gosh!
And also, one of the little girls at the Ideal Home Exhibition was Sally Geeson.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
from Bless's House.
From Bless's House, and then later appeared in two Carry-Ons in the 70s as well.
I haven't noticed that. I'll have to go back again and look at that.
Sally Geeson. Where Kenneth Williams says, you know, would any little boy or girl like to play on my sling? And the girl goes, no. That's
Is
Sally
that
Eason.
her?
Yeah.
I
Oh.
don't recognise her. I have to go back. I love that scene though, where he says that, and it gets more and more agitated. He says, "I know what you need, so yeah, all that sort of stuff."
Yes.
Brilliant. Do they cut any scenes or words, etc., out of the carry-ons these days, Georgie boy?
I think it would be quicker to say what they actually leave in these days.
I know. Yes, it's true.
As you said, JT, many times, buy the discs, get the full uncut versions, and enjoy them properly.
Absolutely. You've got to get them because they absolutely do. It's just ridiculous what they do to them now. And as I say, they cut so much of it that actually a lot of the gags don't work.
Wow.
And that's when it comes to carry-on films. I've said this before. You get new generations coming along, and because the gag isn't there, they're just going to go, what's that about? Switch off. And they're not going to get into it. You have to understand the gag. But because these idiots in the media are saying, oh, that could offend somebody, some sort of pixie living under a rock somewhere, they'll cut it out. And it just doesn't work. Ridiculous.
I saw part of a screening of Carry On Camping on ITV3 months and months ago, and the famous scene where Barbara Windsor pings a bikini was cut.
Oh, God.
Yeah, the whole
one of the most
iconic
scenes in British comedy.
Yes, was cut.
Why? It's not. You don't see anything. That was the problem. For goodness sake.
That was the gag, though, wasn't it? The gag was, matron, take them away.
Yes.
That was the whole gag. I mean, it was just stupid. I love the early Kenneth Connor persona, says Boomer Doug. Even though he was a fabulous actor, I was sad when he changed to other character types in later films. Was this a conscious decision, I wonder?
I like his energetic performance that he gives in the early run. Certainly from from Carry On Sergeant to this, he's full of energy, full of tics and things like that. Superb.
Well, when the Carry Ons first started, Kenneth Connor was the best known member.
He was,
the public eye to the team. He had the highest profile. In fact, for a while, he was the highest paid Carry On star. He was the highest paid star in Regardless.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh God, because I would have thought that would have been, of course, Kenny and Sid for being around at that time, and they were big as well at the time, weren't they?
They both Kenny and Sid got paid £4,500 for the film. Kenneth Connor got $5,000.
Wow,
that's quite a lot back then. And of course, the women didn't get any of that. So there you go, Boomer Doug. I like this one. Jody Boy, thank you so much for your super chat. I love hearing these behind the scenes stories. Yeah, they're great fun, aren't they? They are really good fun. We're very grateful to George for bringing all this this information to us as well, because it just helps to look at the film. And Kenneth's comment, says Stephen Braddock, when he falls into the bath, who's the boiler? I don't know. I have the feeling that wasn't scripted, because that sounds like a Kenneth Williams thing to say, not his character. Because that was, and it was even delivered as Kenneth Williams, I think, because the character had a different voice. Because he did that back then. Do you remember? He used to do a different voice. He sort of morphed into the same voice everywhere. Oh, no, nose in the air, that imperial nose in the air. No. But back then, of course, he was acting, wasn't he? Because his younger version was acting in these things. He would put on a different voice, in a sense. Similar characters, like quite well, but.
I mean, if you look at that scene, you can see Joan Sims is clearly struggling not to burst out laughing.
She loves it. She loves it. There you go, Paul from Steve. The wine waiter is Bernard Hunter.
Oh, really? That's interesting. I must look that up. I've got a family member called Bernard Hunter. They're not actors. We could be related. I'll need to check on that.
You might be related. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. Thank you for joining us, everybody. It's great to see you all for our little review of this fabulous film here. Komodo's with us, guys, saying, I met the guy who supplied all the cabs for Cabby. It was his first contract after his Bradford taxi film went out of business. He now supplies vehicles for major Hollywood films. So I'm glad that they're still around.
Well, the Peg 1 cab from Carry On Cabby is still in existence and is still used. I saw
that. Yeah. I saw that. I saw a little video about that, and I thought, oh, how lovely. That's nice, isn't it? Hello, John, what are you saying to us? You see far worse on TV now, so why cut great scenes from the Carry On films? It's crazy time. I totally agree. You now get the F word on the BBC.
Yeah.
The BBC. Now, of course, in my day, even after the Watershed, which was the 9 o'clock cutoff, wasn't it, guys? You never, ever got the F word, even in the 90s. And yet they're worried about Barbara Windsor's boobs or Liz Dunn's frilly knickers.
Yeah, which actually you don't see in Carry On Camping at all.
I don't see anything. I mean, it's that awful one we're never going to look at, really, isn't it? That you get all the boobs flying around, really. Well, there's also what the army one, but we won't talk about that yet.
Yeah,
it's just not. It is. The world's gone crazy, mate. I remember those Ideal Home exhibitions. What a blast from the past! It's good to see it in the film Dalekai as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think they do them anymore, do they? Do they?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
A carry-on connection there is they used to take place at Olympia, and Hattie Jakes' house was literally around the corner from Olympia.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That famous.
That's the kind of job you want. Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually walked past her house just simply because I knew Hattie Jakes was there. I've also walked past Kenneth when I lived in London as well. You know, the flat.
Yes, we've got the blue plaque. Yeah,
the blue plaque. But Hattie Jakes is there as well, and I just love. You know, I mean, whoever owns it now, I think it might be flats now, to be honest. But whoever's in there now, they must get fed up of people like me coming out and just standing, going.
Yes.
I'm just looking at imagining Hattie coming out the door, going up to the door, all the drama that went on inside behind that door.
Yes, drama. Yes, yeah.
You know, but she wasn't as innocent as she comes out. Anyway, another time. I love the scene with the chimp. The taxi driver says, "I'll take you, but not your brother." That's a classic line. Now that's the other scene that stands out for me when I first saw this as a lad. The chimps. Of course, you're going to remember that as a kid. That was hilarious.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah. The chimp was actually a lady chimp called Lucy.
Really?
Who appeared in an awful lot of films.
Misgendered all through this film.
Yes. Who appeared in an awful lot of films around this time and was one of the original PG chimps.
Well, they were having a PG tips party in the zoo, weren't they? All dressed exactly the same.
Yes. You can tell
one of the other films. Yeah, one of the other films that Lucy appeared in was the Hammer horror, The Revenge of Frankenstein, starring Peter Cushing.
Really?
And Peter Cushing said that every morning when he got on set, Lucy would run up to him and give him a kiss.
Ah, she was stalking him. That's a danger. It's just
he was a very nice man, to be fair. Yeah.
Again, it amused me as a little boy, and because I was amused as a little boy, and I would laugh at it and point at it, going, "Oh, it's a monkey." I remember doing that, and I enjoy it now because of that, because I've got that memory, and I just think the whole thing is charming. I love the way Kenneth plays it again at the tea party ball, where he's having his own cup of tea, and he looks and goes, he's so happy for them, you know. He's.
I have to say though, the chimp, his chimp, Lucy, whatever he was, it looks really pissed off sitting there. I have to say.
She's probably with a gang of fellas.
Probably, yeah.
Look at your manners. It is wonderful. I love when they go for the walk. It's just brilliant, isn't it? And it's something you wouldn't see in 1960s London, but probably see every day now. Editorial comment. But there you go. I mean, they come out of the zoo all the time, don't they? But they are
locations. That house was reused in Carry On Up the Jungle. It was Terry Scott's house at the end of the film.
Right, okay, yeah. They had a thing for doing this, didn't they? The Carry-Ons. They would always go back to the street that was round the corner from.
Yeah, well, a lot of the locations were Windsor, which was very, very handy for Pinewood.
Yeah.
And because it was only a few miles from Pinewood, it was still classed as working at base, so you didn't have to pay premium rates to actors and crew for being away from base. So it was very economical to do. I mean, for example, the Helping Hands agency, the front of that on Park Road in Windsor, was also Jim Dale's consulting rooms in Carry On Again, Doctor. It was the Wedded Bliss agency in Carry On Loving.
That's right, yeah.
The Park Road in Windsor was used in Carry On Camping. It appeared in quite a few of them.
I love that though. Nowadays when you do it, you can spot the location, really, can't you? And that's actually why a lot of the big Carry On films, the aficionados, you know, the real Carry On fans, they go and look at all the locations. Like not
that I've spent a day or two in Windsor finding all these locations and making positive identifications on them at all.
There are some great stuff here. Disgraceful, a load of drunks, says Dave Findlay, which is going back to the wonderful Joan Sims. How wonderful she is in this film, and she looks fabulous as well. And also on this one, how about the abstinence scene between Joan Sims and Kenneth Connor? No sweets, no drools. What a punchline! Again, that's a weird thing, isn't it? It's just pushed in there. It's as though it's some sort of not social commentary actually, but maybe even a filler, where the Kenneth Connor character is trying to give up smoking, and it's all about his performance. It's a weird scene, man.
It's a brilliant performance of that frustration as trying to get a cigarette. That's brilliant.
But
really, really
I think that the real comedy is where he's got the cigar tube stuck to his finger and it becomes an extension of his finger. And he's tapping Joan Sims on the shoulder with it.
Yeah. Again, I get the feeling a lot of it's improvised. I wondered, did George know, says Boomer Doug, why Terence Longdon stopped appearing in the Carry-Ons? I really enjoyed his character. Yes, so this is Mr. Longdon's last one, and he's been there for these first 5, and this is like we don't see him again.
No, he. I know he was approached to do future Carry-Ons at the time. He was committed to doing Cleopatra. And I think after that, basically, he just fell off the radar as far as the Carry-Ons went.
Well, they would have moved on, wouldn't they? We know what they were like.
Yeah.
They just got on with it. I don't want to sound rude, but they did. They would forget you.
Oh, yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind. Next one.
Yeah.
But that's what they were like, weren't they? I mean, that's how they worked.
I mean, the same happened with Kenneth Cope, who did Carry On Comedians and Carry On Matron. He was asked to come back for Carry On Abroad, but he couldn't do it because he was committed to something else. And he said, after that, I was never asked to do another Carry On, regrettably. And the part that would have been his in Carry On Abroad was given to Ray Brooks.
Oh,
really? Oh, really? That one? Oh, really? Oh, gosh. Daryl's joining us. Hi, Daryl. How are you? I love the sequence in the Gentleman's Club with Kenneth Connor.
Yeah.
It is funny, but again, it's one of these scenes, isn't it, where I just think, okay, this is. I mean, that's the beauty of Carry On Regardless, because each helping hands, scene is different, isn't it? And they find themselves in whatever situation it is. It's like with Molly Weir and the Birds and everything like that. It shouldn't work, but it absolutely does. It's brilliant.
It's a juxtaposition for the characters not suiting the jobs that works really well. Like Charlie Horty going to be a bouncer. That's brilliant. That's superb.
In a strip club, yes.
In a strip club, yes.
And then in the boxing ring as well.
Yeah, which again for 1961 with some quite saucy photos on the wall behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well,
do you have any glue tests? No, but central heating.
Central heated, yeah. No wonder the chimp was behaved at the zoo tea party. Thanks, George, says Stephen Braddock. And Julianne saying Chimp Day Out is my favourite scene. It is a great scene, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Chimps and apes in general scare me. Too many horror stories of when they've gone bananas.
Well, along those lines, apparently Lucy didn't like being in enclosed spaces for a long period of time. And Lucy's owner and handler, and Kenneth Williams were behind the front door of the house that we're using in Windsor.
Right.
And it was taking a long time to do the setup. And Lucy was getting very, very impatient because she was being kept in what she thought was an enclosed space for too long.
Yeah.
And apparently she started picking up the ornaments in the hallway of this house and started smashing them because she was getting frustrated.
Like lots of actresses, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Prima donna, that's all I'm saying.
Absolutely, what a diva. I bet Kenneth said, I'm not working with her ever again. Boomer Tuck saying, I love the Stanley Unwin scenes. I was really only familiar with him due to his Jerry Anderson series, Secret Service, one of the weird Anderson shows.
Yeah, we talked about this, I think, in the behind the scenes chat before we came on. That the Secret Service thing's interesting because they did 13 episodes, maybe 26. And apparently Lou Grade cut it short. And all the puppet scenes that Jerry Anderson were doing were stopped at that point, and he went to do live action by doing UFO. And Lou Gray said, "Do live action instead, because we don't want any more puppet stuff, and this one's not going to work." Apparently.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. Komodo is saying, wasn't William Hartnell in a couple of Carry-Ons? And actually, Russ Morgan's with us, who's replied to that, saying William Hartnell was in Carry-On Sergeant. Yeah, which we've reviewed.
Yes, which was his one and only Carry-On.
Yeah, the very first Carry-On Sergeant.
He was the original top-billed Carry-On star.
Yeah,
and he asked for too much money; he couldn't come back. That's why.
Yes, he was offered a role in Carry-On Nurse, which was eventually played by William Hyde White, but either Hartnell or his agent asked for too much money, and Peter Rogers said, "No, I'm not going to match that price," and cast William Hyde White instead.
Yeah.
That's a shame because that's the famous daffodil scene, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Daffodil.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much to talk about with this film as well. We mentioned it earlier on. I just want to mention this gentleman as well. This is Bill Owen, who I forget is in this every single time until he crops up. at the beginning of the film. I don't know what it is. Why do I forget that Mr. Owen was in this film? I mean, this is a guy that we grew up with effectively. Yes, thanks to The Last of the Summer Wine, because he was in that for what, 30 years, maybe?
He was in The Likely Lads as well, bizarrely. That was odd. I didn't know he was in that.
I forget he's in this one.
Like Bill Maynard, it's often forgotten that Bill Owen was in the Carry-Ons. He did 4 Carry-Ons.
Abby was his last one. I don't associate with Carry On, but possibly because of his huge success with Last of the Summer Wine. I don't know. It's weird, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So yes, he's one of those actors that people go, oh yeah, he was in the Carry-Ons. I remember him seeing him in them. Yeah.
I wonder if it's because in this one, because they're not where we know they're going on and the slapstick and all this. I wonder if it's because he's playing it in the old style comedy, which is actually quite straight and delivering the lines in a comedic manner. You know, I wonder if it's because I wonder if he would have fitted in later on as a regular. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He's not got the rest of the crew's kind of quirkiness, has he? If that's what you mean, you know?
Yes, there's something not quite. Well, he doesn't do slapstick. Let's face it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you know, would he have fitted in Cleo?
He was always, for want of a better term, I'm not denigrating him in any way here. To me, he was always the stooge rather than the comedian.
Yeah, more of a straight man.
Yeah. And of course, you've got Sid James really taking a presence here now, and he does that. Although he understands what slapstick is, for example. He does it in his own sort of way, and that's why the Carry-Ons work later on, isn't it? Really. And I don't know. Maybe I just find it interesting. Maybe because they had Sid, they didn't really need Bill Owen as much, or maybe he just decided his career had to go another way.
I think this film, as George said earlier on, it's got a massive cast. I think it's got too many people in it. I think a little bit in terms of the main characters, a little bit. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Sid, I mean, isn't he brilliant? He's absolutely fantastic in this. I mean, you know, we haven't got to that, and we haven't got there yet. And this is him again, being the celebrity that he is at the time, and just playing this and fitting in really well. And I love his scenes, especially, I have to say.
Yeah.
He knows full well what he's doing here. Excuse me.
It's the double take he does when he arrives into the medical room where they're getting examination. It's a great double take, then sits down. That's superb.
Yeah. The best description ever of Sid James is in this film, where Kynaston Reeves says,
yes,
the man with a face like the relief map of the Himalayas.
Yeah.
And he lets it go as well. That's what we used to do. We used to be able to laugh. But it is brilliant. I just love that. The bit where he is around with all the nurses. You wouldn't get out alive today, would you? Actually, if you found yourself in that position, and you would be up before the beak in minutes. You really, really would. But there's something magical about it as well, because it is for laughs.
What I do like about this section, when they realise he's an imposter, and then Joan Hickson takes the phone call, does that wonderful comic feint, and that's really funny. I love that. Yeah.
I love Joan Hickson.
You're not sissy at all, lady. I never said I was.
Joan Hickson, another wonderful talent. My Miss Marple, can I just say, Miss Marple? No other Miss Marple. It's just her in my book. But again, making another appearance in these films. There's several she makes here, and always makes her presence felt. Actually, you know, because apart from one, she does little cameos, doesn't she? Really.
And she's got wonderful comic timing, so she holds up her own, doesn't she? In this, really, in terms of her comic timing.
And I love the fact that I've said before, people actually went to the cinema to see these things, so they would know these people. Oh, there's Joan Hickson.
Yes.
Well,
I mean, another thing to remember is this again was a huge box office success when it was released. It was one of the top films of 1961.
Huge, absolutely huge, and therefore guaranteeing a 6th and a 7th.
Oh yeah. And also, this had, by Carry-On standards, a big increase in budget than the previous Carry-Ons. Sorry,
about 50p.
Well, no, it went all the way up to £115,000.
Woo! That was actually still not up there for that time, but very, very, very good considering what was going on around it.
I mean, that was largely because of the huge cast and the wage bill attached to it. I mean, in today's money, that's about 2.25 million.
which is nothing.
It's nothing at all.
Yeah.
You could still do something on that money today.
Yeah.
But
to offset that huge increase in budget, and bear in mind that Carry On Sergeant, less than 4 years previously, the first one was made for 78,000.
Yeah, so it's
not a big jump between that and 115,000.
Yeah.
Both Peter Rogers and Jerry Thomas agreed to take a lower fee for being the producer and the director on the film than they normally did to offset the costs.
Stop the press on that one, everybody.
I am surprised.
Yeah, but they still didn't go to bed hungry. Don't get me wrong.
No, I'm sure. I never did, because they, never did. We have to mention. We spoke about it a bit earlier. We touched on it earlier. That beautiful scene with Esme where she's getting the whole Forfar Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just genius. It's well written. It's well directed. It's well played. And Kenneth Connor is there. Absolutely. I love it when they get to the train and they meet the legend that is Betty Marsden. What a performance!
I have to say, this is the standout scene in the film for me. I'm double up laughing at this.
Yeah,
it's a brilliant pastiche of Hitchcock, and all his espionage films, and Kenneth
even
Connor
down to her costume.
Yes, Kenneth Connor and Betty Marsden. What a fantastic pairing!
Aren't they, Joe?
And some absolutely sparkling lines like, "You're not English and you're not Chinese, so what?"
and what was the other one where he follows her into that scene, and he follows her into that scene? What does he say to her? I'm not persisting. What's it?
I can't remember that.
I'm persevering.
Yes,
I'm persevering. So I see, and I don't like it.
It's all the winking we do.
Oh yeah, we've got to explain for those that haven't seen it yet. The whole thing about this is that Kenneth Connor's character thinks, for some bizarre reason I still don't understand, that he's suddenly got to be a secret agent, and he's got into his head, and he turns up in he's got the hat, he's got the suit, as you can see, he's got the brown overcoat, and he looks at this glamorous woman on the train here, and obviously decides that she's the Russian contact he has to meet or something like this. It's very bizarre where his head is going, and unfortunately the character has this lazy eye, so occasionally she's doing this, and it happens to do after every sentence. As though she's
but the payoff is just perfect. No, I said a fourth act bridge.
And isn't it brilliant though? All the scenes where they use the Forth Road Bridge and the other train, early green screen technology there.
It's a really good pastiche of the 39 steps.
It's fabulous, and the fact he throws him off, he throws himself off the train. It cracks me up. It's just such a genius part of the film.
Yeah, that scene for me is.
I love it.
Much as I love Kenneth Williams. Yeah, much as I love Kenneth Williams, that scene for me is the absolute standout of the film.
Yeah. And when you know it's about to come on as well, I really look forward to that. That whole bit from Esme rolling onwards. It's it's just genius. I love that. Well done to them, because it's just so well done. Do we know if these guys did they do their own segments at different times putting this film together?
They were all called. I think the scenes where the main cast were together in the Helping Hands agency in the house at the end of the film were shot at the beginning of the shooting schedule, if I remember correctly, and then they were all called at separate times to do their own individual scenes.
Yeah, that's possibly why you get that feeling that they do interact occasionally throughout the whole film.
Yeah,
maybe because it is brilliant as well. I mean, this is another great scene as well with these two. I mean, I love all this. I love. Call me old-fashioned, but I quite like the way that these two are just sitting there with the knitting. There's something charmingly British about that. They're very young women. They're very trendy. They're on point. If you know what I mean. It's all there for them, and there they are, just knitting. It's just looking for the next job, waiting for the next job. Absolutely. But there is. Let's just get this in now. There is that bit about what would eventually, I'd say, form into Women's Lib in the 70s. This is 1961, where the two of them go into the men's part of the labor exchange. I love that bit. This is it, and because this is the exact opposite to what the carry-ons are always labeled as being, the sexism. Because here they are, very early on, film 5, showing these very strong, independent women saying, "Right, we're going in there. Come on, then." And the response is basically, "Is there anything going? Nothing." You know, the fellas don't care, do they?
The one thing that's often, I think, deliberately overlooked about the carry-ons is for at least 95% of the time, you're laughing with the characters, not at them.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. And you care about the characters as well, don't you? You really do. So you started to, you engage with them. Something that a lot of people that are making films today can actually learn from. Van Zan, it is lovely to see you. Welcome to Whose Views. Not seen you before. Ooh, cheeky. Evening all. Evening to you as well, Van Zan. I love that. Van Zan. And Derek Hart is saying to us here, the black and white carry-ons I love are spying, regardless, cabbie, teacher, colour, screaming, camping, abroad and behind. Oh. Oh, the black and white ones that carry on. I love, right, there we go. I was going to say there's a few more there. Paul Rose is saying, JT, if you had a time machine, can you imagine going back to a lunch break on set with the classic Carry On Kang? That would be amazing. It'd be an eye-opener.
It's legendary at Pinewood Studios that the Carry-Ons had their own table in the restaurant for lunch, and other film productions, you know, they would have bare knuckle fights to get onto the Carry-On table to have lunch. I mean, we're talking the likes of Laurence Olivier, John Gielgud, all these fighting to have lunch with the Carry-On team because apparently it was just an hour of non-stop hysterics every single time. Joan Sims said that she had to leave lunch 10 minutes early to get her makeup jacked up because she was laughing so much. It had all run down her face during lunch. And because it was frowned upon being even a minute late back onto set for a carry-on, she had to leave lunch 10 minutes early to get her makeup fixed so she could be on time to be back on call.
Oh, I love those stories more than the other ones. You know, where Charles Hawtrey was annoying everybody, so they wouldn't speak to him, or he was sitting on his own. I love all these stories where they were actually having fun together, you know, or whatever. Because they sort of, whether people interpret it or not, they work so closely together for years. They must have tolerated each other. They must have got on at some point, because otherwise they would have all dropped out around about now.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, another thing to bear in mind there is Kenneth Williams appeared in more of the films than anybody else. He did 26 of them.
Yeah, and then he always went to slag them off.
Yeah. Back in 1958, he didn't sign a contract to do 26 films over 20 years. It was one picture at a time. He was nobody apart from one actress was ever on a retainer contract for the Carry-Ons.
No,
So after one film, if it was so painful to do, why didn't they walk away from it?
Exactly.
It wasn't tight.
Yeah. Don't think I've actually seen this one, so Captain Borsak. I recommend it, mate. Go and watch it. You can
You're
find
in for a treat when you do.
Yeah, you will thank us. You can send us the message and you'll thank us, because it is very, very funny. It's brilliant, and it's proper British humour as well in this film, which I quite like. Talking of the monkey, going back to the monkeys for a minute as well. I love the lady who, you know, when they're trying to get on the bus, and the good old fashioned bus conductor won't let them. You know, you're not bringing your mate on and all this sort of stuff. And the little monkey that you were mentioning there, George, she's playing with the woman standing behind her, and this poor actress is getting on with it. You know, they can't cut, or they won't cut. They won't go back to her. She's all like, yeah. And at one point, the woman laughs at the team there, doesn't she? Really? I love all those little bits. It's brilliant. Paul Stenford, the scene at the end of the film in the dilapidated house with the water gushing out is great. What a brilliant way to end the film. That again is just slapstick. And I like it because of it, you know, with the water and everything like that, and falling down the hole and stuff. As a little boy, I thought that was the best thing in the world.
Well, I love when they fall down the stairs, and then Charles Hawtrey breaks in the door to go down to turn off the water. That's brilliant, really funny.
Yeah. We've got Van Zandt saying to us here as well. As a Cockney, I was brought up very much with the unspoken understanding that Sid James was the governor, despite the fact that he was actually South African and born in Johannesburg.
Yeah.
And that was the brilliant thing, as we've said before. However, the governor was the show. A bit like they say the street is the show in Coronation Street. That's the governor. The square in EastEnders. It was the carry-on format, wasn't it? Really, but there wasn't a real star of them all, really.
Mhm.
It's magical how it all works, though, wasn't it?
Mhm.
I just want to say as well, I just want to point out that the music was done by Bruce Montgomery.
Mhm.
So something very different there, but you know, it works for the film. I think it's not all the slap and tickle that comes later, as we said before, because
Yeah.
this film is different. But I quite like
Yeah.
it. It's quite restrained in a sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is,
the same theme tune was used for the first 6 Carry-Ons, which is now known as the Carry-On theme.
Carry on
It was,
theme.
yeah, it was rearranged to give it a nautical feel for Carry-On Cruising, but it is the same piece of music.
Yeah.
And then it was changed for Carry-On Cabby because, as I said earlier, that was made as Call Me a Cab. It wasn't going to be a Carry-On, and it was so far down the line that it was scored. The music was scored for it to be Call Me a Cab. And if you listen to the theme tune of Carry On Cabby, musically it says Call Me a Cab over and over and over again.
All right.
And you know, it was it was that late in the day that it became a Carry On.
Yeah, well, when we come to Carry On Cabby, we'll look at that because we will come to that at some point as well. The ending of the film is a great homage to Laurel and Hardy movies. I suppose it actually is, Stephen.
Yeah.
It is. Van San is also saying to us here, Sid James and Babs Winder's laughs could cure cancer, I swear. Oh, I love that. Oh, is it just me that likes to occasionally dress up as a nurse and go, nah? Oh, it is. Oh, okay, so thanks for that. Rose Kirby saying to us, hey, I've just counted Carry On Regardless is film 23 out of 30. No, it's not. It's earlier. It's 1961, so it's the 5th film.
Yes, it's film number 5.
Number 5, yeah. And it's that, you know.
Yes. Number 23 was Carry On Matron.
Yes. Can't wait till we come to that one. Talking of Matron, we are going to be doing scores on Matron's clipboard very, very soon. So stay with us for that, everybody. Paul Rose, a typical Englishman of the time, pictured with hair clenched. All very good. George very kindly, who viewers, sent us some photographs here. Now, these again, we've shown one of them, but we'll show them all again now. These are the pictures that I was saying to you before, used to adorn the way up to the doors or into the picture house or wherever, you know, these sort of publicity shots here. Now, let's have a look at these and get into these and have a chat about these because these are gorgeous. This one we saw before with the lovely Liz here and this this gentleman. I don't know what to say about this scene. I just thought, what gentleman would be doing this for his missus? There's words we would call this gentleman today, I'm sure.
Well, it's a novel way of getting close for your wife, I have to say. I'm not going to try. I get into a lot of trouble if I try to do that. Yeah.
I think those of you who are married would get into a lot of trouble.
Yes.
It's when she comes home, George, and she's all like, what? Yeah.
I think that was the first very blatant time that a scene was put in a Carry On to get a bit of sauce in there. You know, we can have 3 minutes of, you know, the drop dead gorgeous Liz Fraser in lots of skimpies. Let's do it.
Yeah, we've got enough time in the film. Yeah. This is the other one that we were talking about before with Mr. Conductor on the bus. There's that lady there in the big hat. You don't see women like that anymore, gentlemen, do you?
They are serious hats, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
A serious women as well.
These ladies, by the way, were still around in the 70s to an extent when I came along onto the scene, onto this planet. Because I remember ladies of a certain age with big hats like that and the big coats with the big collars like that and the bows.
She's very Ina Sharples-esque, don't you think?
Yeah, the women that you just did not, you knew you would not argue with because you get a right flip. Yeah, you know, you would not. You would just say, yes, thank you. No, thank you. Keep your mouth shut because they used to terrify me. But that's the lady I was talking about there, just behind the monkey there, still looking at the camera, it seems. Good for her. This was a great scene.
when Charles Hawtrey's drawers fall down as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now the guy that Charles Hawtrey is getting the better of there,
yes,
is Tom Clegg, who was Oddbod in Carry On Screaming.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is without all his makeup. And getting a right good hiding there for being a very naughty boy. I just love the way Hawtrey plays that scene. You know, because he's going, I was like, oh, you brute, and all these old wonderful words that we wouldn't use today. You know, it's just brilliant. Oh, he needs a good hiding, that one, and oh, I love it. He's just so determined he can get the better of him.
I love the line that Sid's got about, don't hit him, he's still got his glasses on.
But I think to illustrate what we were discussing earlier about Charles Hawley feeling like he got a raw deal in this film, he doesn't get his own sequence until 45 minutes into the film.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
You've got the likes of Kenneth Williams and Kenneth Connor who've had 2 by then.
Yeah,
and, and he doesn't come into his own until more than the halfway mark into the film.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying about that though, because Kenneth Connor is still a big name at this point.
Yeah,
the others are coming, and I know Hawtrey was.
Yeah, I mean, it did turn out to be a thorn in the side for Charlie Hawtrey, this one.
Again, it's ego, isn't it, really? I mean, he's still getting paid.
Yeah, he did feel that he got the thin end of the wedge on this one.
Oh, it's a shame, isn't it? Sid's laugh is one of the great wonders of the world, dirty yet hilarious, and not actually in this, really, as well. It's still to come, the joys of that one. And Stephen Braddock is saying, I'm a linguist. Well, that's the first time I've heard it called that. Absolutely beautiful lines, aren't they? They're really good. Daryl, yes, Vanilla Fielding is in this one. We spoke about her before and how beautiful performance she was playing, or what she could do there. We've got this picture as well here from George's library. This is the scene a lot of you love. This is the gentleman's club. You don't get them anymore, do you? Gentlemen's clubs. Are we allowed them these days? But
I'm sure we have them somewhere. Yes,
they might have them in Flat Ireland, mightn't they? Down in
possibly
Flat Ireland.
I love Kenneth trying to mime a fly there. Your fly's undone. That's what the
and these poor old boys, now all long gone, of course, haven't a clue what he's doing. It's absolutely hilarious. It's a great scene, this one, and it shows his sort of talent, doesn't it, for Mr. Connor here? You know, you get a bit of mime thrown in here as well. It's just oh bless. Oh, bless. We've got this one as well. Oh, we've showed this one, of course. This is one of my favourite scenes with the lovely Joan. And there he is there. Oh, I love this. And that scene there, she looked great, doesn't she?
It was fantastic. Joan was a very, very beautiful woman.
She was. Yeah. Oh, she was. She was stunning. Absolutely stunning. As we can tell by that one. Love it. Oh, love it, love it, love it. And then the scene that finishes the whole film off with the water jets. I think that's brilliant how they managed to do that in studio like that. What a mess they must have made.
A great set.
Brilliant set. And just as well it was falling down, because it wouldn't have stood the pressure of that water after a day, I tell you.
Well, the big advantage of having Pinewood as your home, the greatest film studio in the world.
Yeah. But a great, and you can tell they're having fun with it as well.
And that scene is a very rare example of an ad lib being kept in a Carry On.
Go on.
Where Kenneth Williams says, he says, we can pull it all down. We can pull down the outhouse, the brick house, the wash house. And he goes on to say, and Kenneth Connor jumps in and says, that fell down of its own accord.
I didn't realize that was an ad lib. That's great.
Yeah, that was an ad lib. And apparently when they did it, Jerry Thomas burst out laughing, so they kept it in the film.
Well, if he approved,
yes,
you don't argue, do you? Now, George, you also sent us a couple of these, so tell us about these.
Okay, the Carry-Ons were also very, very successful in America, largely because of their Britishness. And originally, an American distribution company called Governor Films had the contract to get the Carry-Ons into American cinemas, as you can see there. And that's actually the American publicity campaign for Carry-On Regardless.
The Wacky Birds is here.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where they got that from.
I don't know.
It's a very, very different campaign to the UK version. But yes,
but they're utilising Les Fraser very well, don't you think?
Yes, that's what stole the film over in America when it was released there in 1962-63.
Oh, so a year or two after.
Yeah.
But and is this the same thing?
That's the British version, based on the poster art that you had at the start of the show.
Yeah.
That would have appeared like in your local newspaper.
Oh, I see. So, oh gosh, do you know, we're so far away from it now. I forget that they used to advertise all the films in the local paper, and you would have to go to the local paper, wouldn't you, on the Thursday or the Friday, to see what was coming that weekend and into the week after. I forget those days.
And it would have said now showing at your local ABC cinema with the times of the screenings underneath it.
Just for Daryl is another one of these. There's the one with Fenella.
Now, Fenella told me that her part in Carry On Regardless was done in 2 days. She had 1 day at Pinewood doing costume and makeup, and then 1 day actually shooting. So that whole scene, which is 4 or 5 minutes long, was shot in a day.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm surprised they got through it though, because Kenneth is just brilliant. I just love the way she keeps that straight face.
Yeah.
All the way through it, when you've got this madman performing his socks off. I just love that way. He look the little sneaky look. He's just brilliant in that as well. And that would become the staple, of course, of the Carry On films from there on in, wouldn't it? Not to look at that part. But I love that. It's showing just how fickle men are from this point on. Honestly, it really, really does. Oh, we've got some great comments from everybody in the chat here as well. Thank you. John was reminding Daryl that she played Penny Panting.
Yes, that's the way I always breathe.
Yes. Steve says, "Oh yes, you had to go to the Liverpool Echo to check the Empire and the Carlton. 2 giants back in Liverpool in those days, weren't they, Steve? The Empire and the Carlton. Oh God, what a shame. It's breaking my heart actually looking at all this. We're looking at it. What have we missed? What have we missed?"
Cinemas were sent what were called campaign books for every film that had a major circuit release, and they were anything from 10 to 20 pages long, and in there would be advertising blocks they would give to their local newspapers, like that one for Carry On Regardless, and they would add the screening times and dates underneath them.
Yeah. Happy days here in the UK. They were. I mean, I've said before, I missed the Carry-Ons at the pictures. I was too young, obviously in the 70s. You wouldn't have been allowed to go, wouldn't have got in. But it's a shame, really. I would have loved to have seen them in the pictures. And this one is one of those that I would think, I would like to see this on the big screen even today. I would like to know what it looks like, because I think it looks glorious and it's shot well, it's directed well. Gerald Thomas really goes for it in this one as well. He's really nice. This is, as we're saying here continually, this is the one that sort of indicates where the Carry-Ons are going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, before becoming a director, Jerry Thomas was one of British cinema's top editors, and Jerry knew what would work on screen and what wouldn't before he even shot anything. He didn't waste a frame of film. There were no wasted shots of people going through a door or getting out of a car or something like that. He said, because somebody going through a door or getting out of a car isn't funny. So he would cut to the setup for the next gag. So it was always bang, bang, bang. And, there was never any fat on it at all. It was very, very slick. And it was his work as an editor that got him to do that.
Well, it works, doesn't it? So he knew his trade and he knew what he was producing and getting out there. And as we see this develop as well, it works because they're so popular. The audience is building and building and building and building for each film. It's brilliant.
It's a useful skill to have on a tight budget, definitely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the other thing that was a huge benefit to the budget was it kept the cost of the film stock down.
Of course,
because he knew what he wanted before the camera started rolling. He didn't go, we'll do that again, but this time we'll have the camera over there, or actually I think it'd be better if we did this, thinking about it. He already had in his head what would work best, and that's what he shot.
Yeah,
I love it. Absolutely love it. Right, it's that time now, everybody. You in the chat, if you're new to us, what we do now is we do scores on Matron's clipboard. This is your chance to give Carry On Regardless a mark out of 10. So start popping your marks out of 10 into the chat for us. And before that, run the titles, and then I'll ask Paul and George what they think about it. Run VT. All right, then. So we're going to start with Paul. For Carry On Regardless out of 10, what are you going to give this wonderful film?
Well, I'm going to have to give my usual preamble before I give my scores.
Go
There's
ahead.
a few things I want to say about this, particularly. I mean, there's some great stuff in this film. Some lovely scenes. I agree with what George and you both said about it's kind of a series of sketches, effectively. So it's not as strong a film as I would say some other my favourites are, but some
Yeah.
great scenes in it. Kenneth Connor is wonderful in this, and I have to say, and Esme Cannon as well. But Stanley Unwin gets my vote because he's hilarious with his gobbledygook and all that kind of stuff. I love all that. Shut your cakey, all that kind of stuff. Brilliant stuff. Remarkable is probably one to say on that one. But yeah, I'm going to give it 7.5 out of 10.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really, really good. Okay, then, George, what are you going to give this one?
It's an absolutely lovely film. You can watch it, thoroughly enjoy it, watch it again, thoroughly enjoy it again. Like Paul, there are some absolutely wonderful elements to it. As I said before, I think the 39 Steps pastiche with Kenneth Connor and Betty Marsden is just comedy gold. And there's lots of other stuff to enjoy in there. Having said that, I don't think the sketch format is the best format for the carry-ons. I don't think it's a failure, but I don't think it's the best format.
Yeah.
There are better carry-ons out there, objectively and subjectively. And again, that's not to say this is bad by any stretch of the imagination. It was said earlier in the chat, it's the perfect Sunday afternoon film. Yeah, it certainly is. And for me, it's an 8 out of 10.
Fantastic. Thank you for putting your scores into the chat, everybody. Keep them coming on now. Well, I just give my score as well. As I said, I enjoyed this. I like this. However, this is not one of my go-tos. I have to be honest. As I say, if it happens to come on and I find it, I will watch it very, very happily, but it's not one I'll return to. That's a shame because it is a brilliant film. I absolutely love it. And it does remind me of those scenes, as I said, when I was a kid, where I just laughed out loud and just loved it. I absolutely loved that. It's not one of my favorites, though, and it's not in my top few. So I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10 as well. But I'm not saying it's a bad film. It's just getting a 7 out of 10 for me. I do enjoy it, though, and it's great, but I like the later ones. Before we get into all your scores, everybody, Dave Harding saying to us, do you think it would work to revive the Carry On film franchise in the 2020s?
No.
Or were they a product of the time and a modern take on Carry On just wouldn't be as good? Well,
David, if you cut me in half, I'd have Carry On written through me. I love the Carry Ons. But the worst possible thing that could happen is a misguided attempt to revive the Carry Ons now. They were a wonderful moment in time where the most fabulous ensemble of comedy actors, a brilliant film producer, a brilliant comedy director got together and produced some of the funniest comedy ever committed to film. But that time has been and gone, and it can't be replicated.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Paul?
Totally. Please don't remake them or try and redo them or create that, try and create the spirit of that. George is right. It was a film, a genre of its time, and it's been done beautifully. Don't do it again.
I'm going to agree with everything those two have just said there. I don't like it when people start to say, "Oh, there's going to be another Carry On film coming on," because I just know, no, it won't, because it won't survive, and it won't be a Carry On. And there's too much wokeism and all this nonsense going on now. Plus, I'm going to say this: the comics today are useless. They wouldn't be able to carry off a Carry On. Yeah. Go and look at Columbus from the 90s when they brought it back and tried to reboot the franchise there. It's absolutely off. They couldn't deliver a line. And yet outside of the Carry On format, they were very good. Yeah. But they were very restrained. And I think that was down to part of the production as well. Oh, you're going to be the Kenneth part. You're going to be the Sid part. You're going to be the Barbara part. You're going to be the Hattie part. I agree with you. You can't repeat that. This was a moment in time that cannot be repeated. Let it go. And let's just enjoy the unedited versions of this and let them live.
Yeah, I genuinely
buy the Blu-rays.
Yeah, I genuinely think we don't have the caliber of comedy actors that would match the Carry On team, and also actors that knew how to work as a team and mesh together so perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of these so-called alleged comics today, yeah. Anyway, let's get on to your scores from the chat. Thanks for that question, though, mate. Lovely from that one. John is saying 9 out of 10. It's a wonderful film. Steve Hinley is giving it a 10 out of 10. Mark McIntosh, a good, strong 8 from me. Very entertaining. Paul Rose is saying to us, I have to confess, I didn't have a chance to watch it recently, so in fairness, I can't vote. But when you have, pop it into the comments section so we know. 10 out of 10 from Boomer Bug. Very funny and fab memories. Perfect combo. My favorite era. How lovely. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10, says Rose Kirby. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Stephen Braddock, I haven't seen this film for years, but I watched it yesterday and it was a delight. It is a series of comedy scenes, but it's still a wonderful feel-good film. 8 out of 10. Absolutely. Daryl is giving it 7 out of 10, and Captain Borsak is saying, bearing in mind that I haven't seen it, but based on the chat and comments from the host, it's a 7 out of 10 for me. Dalek Eye is also saying 7 out of 10. A very funny movie, but a lack of plot did not work for me. Esme was the highlight for me. I think the performance for me, guys, are all a highlight, but I agree with what George and Paul were saying and what you're saying, Dalek Eye. It was a nice idea. At least he tried it. At least he tried the sketch format, but it's not a carry-on.
One thing I noticed particularly about particularly during the scenes with Kenneth and the chimpanzee, it looks bloody freezing when they were filming.
I know.
It was filmed November, December.
So it would have been
1960, going into 61.
Yeah.
And apparently it was a very bitter winter.
It looked like it, yeah.
Well, it was. Yeah. They had big snow around about then as well, didn't they? Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the scenes of Kenneth Williams walking with the chimp, his breath's hanging in the air. It's clearly a very icy day.
Yeah.
And they don't care because they've got to get in the can. They repeated it. They repeated it a few years later with camping, which we'll come to one day. Dalek is saying about they're bringing them back. No, they tried bringing the carry-ons back and it failed. I totally agree. Paul Stenterford, wonderful British humour with an excellent cast of characters. In my opinion, one of the best of the carry-ons and a solid 9 out of 10. These are incredibly high scores. This is wonderful to see. Paul Rose, they tried that before with Columbus. It didn't work then. Absolutely no chance in today's world. I agree. Sadly, I agree. For all those sort of reasons. 7 out of 10 from Julianne. Not my favourite carry-on, but an enjoyable, light-hearted film. I watched it yesterday and liked it more than I remembered, which is great. Thanks for that, Julianne. Glad you like that. Stephen Braddock is saying they were lightning in a bottle that can never be recreated. And Peter Venkman fan site saying, writers. Some people can't write for an ensemble or with the character type in mind. Some people just can't write at all, can they, Peter Venkman fan site, which we know very well.
I mean, one thing, Norman Hudis, who scripted this, was an absolutely lovely man, and he was the first to acknowledge how wonderful a lot of the scripts that Talbot Rothwell wrote for the carry-ons that came after his stint. Norman said, "I wish I could turn around and say, yes, I wrote Carry On Cleo. Yes, I wrote Carry On Up the Khyber." He said, but they're Talbots, and he said they are untouchable.
The difference is, we can say it because we've looked at Cleo, for example. That's a really big, solid, epic film in a sense. Big script, and it's unfair to compare them because they're done at different times. But it shows how the range evolves, how the Carry On series evolves, doesn't it? To become those things that really influenced me. It's on the way, folks, from this film onwards. And you shut your cakey holes, says Stephen Braddock. Paul Rose is saying, JT, tonight you may have a nightmare about RTD producing a new Carry On series, only because you've mentioned it. Can you imagine?
Tomorrow, the news will be reporting that a fire has broken out at Badwall Studios. Arson is suspected.
7 out of 10 from Yokai63 as well for Carry On Regardless. Excellent British comedy from more innocent times. Absolutely. And even the more innocent times, the whole wonderful thing about those times here in Britain was the innuendo. We were so good at innuendo. That's been taken away from us now. We're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to do it. That's why we must do it more.
Which appears to me more offensive than swearing, which is really weird.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. And as I said before, you can now say the F word on the BBC.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
at 9:05 as well.
It's such a shock. Such a shock. But you can't.
You don't want to hear that on Antiques Roadshow, do you?
You don't. No. Never catch Arthur Nigger saying that. What would you read?
Absolutely shocking. All right. Any more in the chat? No, we haven't. That was it. Thank you very much for taking part with that for our scores on Matron's Clipboard. I've really enjoyed looking at this, and thank you to everybody whose views in the views that have managed to get the time to look at Regardless and join us for this little review. I hope you've enjoyed it. Paul, George, as ever, thank you for joining me for Carry On.
Thank you, George, very much. Thank you.
What will we do next? We will squabble about that later on, and we will let you know. It'll be back in the new year. Our reviews of the Carry On films. We'll do another one in the new year. So come and join us for that. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you have, make sure you are still subscribed. And thank you to everybody that's still sending me little messages saying, oh, I had to go and resubscribe. Nothing to do with us at all. But thank you so much. And do keep checking because I don't know what's going on. Steve Hindley has given us a nice little comment here. A brilliant show tonight. Well, thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's really, really nice. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody that has joined us tonight. Stephen and everybody. It's great to see. Oh, everybody say, oh, Peter Venkman as well. Thank you so much. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. I'm glad you're enjoying this series. As I say, we've got a lot coming up between now and the new year with the other thing that we look at mainly. So we will be back with a Carry On review for you in the new year. Stay with us. Until we see you again on the channel, make sure you've subscribed and you've liked and have a look at our homepage, if that's what you call it on the Tube of Who. Look at the show page because you'll see all the stuff that's coming up for you this month. It's all there for you. So make sure you've rung that bell so you get notifications of when we're going live, and keep an eye out, of course, for headlines every Sunday live at 8. Until we see you again, George, Paul, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Really great.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
We will see you all again soon. From all of us. Bye, everybody. Bye.
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 Yes. No.